This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Storytellers Cafe, and I'm your host, Usha Venkatraman from New York. I'm in my daughter's apartment in Brooklyn, and it's a lovely, sunny, hot day, and I can see the skyline of Manhattan. And I'm happy to be in the United States. As you all know, Storytellers Cafe is part of Bharat FM, Bharat Media, which is based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And Storytellers Cafe has completed 2 years, and this is our season 3 from July onwards. And we have been, introducing you to storytellers, guests from all across the world. As you know, Storytellers Cafe has made footprints right from Australia to Singapore. From Singapore, we traveled to Indonesia, Malaysia, Doha, Qatar, Dubai. Then we traveled across the seas to United Kingdom and to the United States. And now we are back to the Scandinavian country of Norway. So my guest tonight is from Norway. He is a special storyteller because what's common between an oceanographer and a storyteller? So let's find out. But before that, let me introduce my guest. Friends, as you know, Storytellers Cafe is here to entertain, educate, as well as inform all the listeners across the world. So, some of the storytellers who have graced my studios have been storytellers, and some of them who have turned into, who are from the different performing arts, be it a dancer or a singer or a painter, and who has turned into a storyteller, because storytelling is an innate art form which is there in each and every one of us. And sometimes this latent art talent needs to come out, and some people tap it and they bring it out. So I'm very happy that all of you make this commitment every second week or every week to come and listen to Storytellers Cafe, to listen, enjoy, and learn, because I'm learning a lot from my guests. I enjoy these episodes as much as you do, as I get to sit down with friends. Sometimes new friends are created on Storytellers Cafe and share with you the wealth of insight, wisdom, and life experiences my guests will share. Today's guest is Gaurav Madan from Norway. Born and brought up in New Delhi, Gaurav moved to Canada 6 years ago and started telling stories of adventures and experiments of his life and India's folklore. He's an ocean and climate researcher by day and a storyteller by evening. In the 6 years of storytelling, Gaurav has performed at various storytelling festivals and concerts across Canada, United States, and India, including the First Person Arts Storyslam. He was actually the winner of the Storyslam. Toronto International Storytelling Festival, St. John's Storytelling Festival, Montreal Intercultural Storytelling Festival, Canadian Storytelling Day, World Storytelling Day at Toronto, and St. John's, to name a few. In fact, I came across Gaurav at the Toronto International Storytelling Festival this year in the month of May. Yes, and it was a hybrid festival. So most of the events, storytelling concerts, were streamed alive. And I was very curious because I read this byline, Danveer Karan by Gaurav Madan. You know, you rarely get to see Indian names in the international concerts, storytelling festivals. So I signed up, and I was blown away by Gaurav's performance because he's a singer like me. And without further ado, let me get Gaurav onto the studios. Welcome, Gaurav.
Thanks a lot for the wonderful introduction, but I won't make the mistake by saying that I'm a singer by any means, as good as you or anybody else.
No, no, you're wonderful. And Gaurav, I was really intrigued. I was going through all the storytelling schedule and programs, and yours stood out. And I said, oh, this is an Indian, and this is Danveer Karan. It took me a little time to absorb this. And then I heard the story from Mahabharata, of course, with an introduction about Ganesha. And it was wonderful. I heard you singing and got a little bit idea about you, and then I did a little bit of searching and research about you and found you were on Facebook and befriended you, and here you are. Because that's my job. I'm on the search, look out for Indian storytellers who are spread across the globe. Like I said, Storytellers Cafe has made footprints all over the world because we are there everywhere. And this is the first time we are entering Europe as such, and that too Norway. And it'll be wonderful to hear your story from New Delhi to Canada to Norway. If I'm not missed out any other place that you traveled, how did you become a storyteller by night?
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me here, and congratulations of your successful 2 years and starting the third season, which is quite an achievement anyway. So the journey was interesting. I mean, I was never a storyteller. I still largely, when people ask me, "Are you a storyteller?" Just to cut the conversation, I say yes. But do I believe myself as a storyteller? Definitely not. In its strictest definition, generally storytellers are the one who tell stories all the time. Although I do tell the stories, but research stories is what I tell, the science stories. But telling other kinds of stories that I figured out when I moved to Canada was something I had never experienced before. When I moved to Canada, the first year was slightly complicated because I was still getting used to moving to a new country. And then I started going into those Just for Laughs festival shows. And that was my introduction to stage performances. And when I was sitting in the audience, I asked myself, can you do this? And answer was yes, I should try and do like 2 or 5 minutes or maybe 10 minutes stand-up sets. Now, I had never done comedy before. Just for Laughs is like the highest pedestal in stand-up comedy. So I thought of going to one of these comedy evenings that had open mics. But since it's Montreal, that's where I was, the home of Just for Laughs. The comedy evenings, they are always packed. So this show, which I won't name, put me on the waiting list. I was very disheartened because I thought, oh, it's an open mic, I should easily get in, but then they didn't let me in. And the next obvious thing was I wanted to step on stage and feel that anxiety that people generally have when they hold the mic and they start speaking to the audience, which I could never do before. That's when I landed on this show called Confabulation. It was their 7th anniversary special, huge show in Montreal, and they had one slot remaining for their performances. That was 10 days from then. So I sent my story pitch at 2:30 in the night. So, and the show producer didn't respond for next 2 days because there was weekend, Saturday and Sunday. On Monday morning, I got the response from the show producer that he was interested in my story and wanted to listen the entire thing. Now, I did send a pitch, but there was no story because I hadn't written it. So we had conversation over phone and we decided to meet on Tuesday evening with other show producer who would workshop me into the story show, which was supposed to happen on Saturday. So we worked around, got the story together in that one meeting. And then it was Saturday. I told the story. I loved the responses that I got from the audience, and the since it was seventh anniversary special, stakes were high. They were Grammy Award, professional storytellers, authors, journalists. These were the kind of people who were performing, and in middle of these high intensity performances, it was me who had never stepped on stage before. So having after doing that confabulation show, I think that the barrage of emotions that I felt after telling the story, and even the kind of enjoyment I had while telling the story, got me hooked onto it, and since then I've been telling stories of various kinds.
Wonderful. What a journey. Wonderful. For all those who are tuning in, and we are in conversation with Gaurav Madan, storyteller based in Norway presently, but who was in Montreal and started his journey into storytelling, who is an oceanographer, a scientist, a researcher by day, and a storyteller by night, because that's when the stories come out, right? The ideal time to listen to stories. So, Gaurav, tell us a little bit about your journey, from India to Montreal, and then on to a little bit about the work, which itself is very interesting.
So I've always been atmospheric science researcher. If I talk about the last 8 years or so, and then I got a position in University of Quebec in Montreal, and that was too good of a position to say no. But my family did not want me to go. My father wanted me to stay in Delhi, where I was living with him and my siblings. At that point, I was a researcher at IIT Delhi. So my father was like, "Yeah, it's a really good position. You are in there, so you should stay here. You are with your family, and end of story. Get married, get settled. Everything is nice." But I had some other plans. The primary reason to move to Canada was not just the position that was offered, but there were other plans as well that I wanted to get into. There's a race in Alaska that's a 1,000-mile long sled race. It's called Iditarod, the last great race on the planet. So I saw moving to Canada as a step to get to my dream of running in that race one day. So there were two things that were working at the same time: getting to Canada, so I'm closer to Alaska, and the position that I was offered. So moved to Montreal and started working in one of the climate models that Canada has made of their own. So my job was to make that model better and not suck as much as it was earlier. So that's how I made that move, and yeah, I mean, since then it has been quite a roller coaster, I would say, because some things fell in place the way I planned, but then most of the things don't fall the same way you expected. So same way happened to me. I stayed in Montreal for a while, then I moved to Kingston, then I moved to Toronto very briefly, and then to St. John's. This all happened within the span of like 1 year. So all these cities I was moving, and when I was moving to these different cities, I was meeting people and learning of them, introducing them to my adventures. I run ultra marathons, so the initial stories that I told was just my stories from these races, what all happened in these races. And my first story ever was actually the race that is a qualifier to Iditarod. That was my first story ever. Um, and when people and when I realized people do respond to the personal stories, which I had never seen happen before anywhere else. I think that opened the floodgates for me, where I could really express myself and use that skill into telling stories in science as well.
Great. You know, Gaurav, that there is this whole, I wouldn't say new, STEAM storytelling, STEM storytelling, and environmental stories, Earth Up conferences. There's a great rage now. You have a separate festival at the National Storytelling Network in the United States, which is the Earth Up Conference. And especially in the last couple of years during the pandemic, that was a standalone festival, so stories that contribute to Earth's resources, how we can preserve and take care. That itself is a separate festival, which is, I think,
Wow.
wonderful, the need of the hour. So, did you, in your repertoire, do you have these stories that kind of safeguard the ocean, the marine life, because we humans have, we are guilty of
Yeah.
contaminating water as well, and the seas and the oceans, and endangering the marine life.
Well, since I largely work with climate models and observations aspect, we generally do not tend to get tell these stories to the audiences, the kind of audiences we encounter. But of late, what I've found very interesting is the journey that oceanography itself has taken, the history of ocean sciences, the way it has developed from the early 1700s when people didn't even know ocean circulates and there is something called upper ocean and the deeper ocean, to like late 1800s where people found out that there is the deeper water in the ocean is cold even in tropics, not just in the polar regions. So there is something happening in the northern latitudes, to the time when there was a huge battle between two researchers in the publication, nature publication, where everybody was throwing comments over each other. What is driving this ocean circulation to where we are today, where we have much better understanding of how oceans impact the climate and how oceans are governing the overall heat exchange globally. But still, there are so many different aspects that are not tapped into yet. So I think these stories, when you are proposing different projects, when you're reaching out to the stakeholders, they do matter a lot. Am I doing it at the moment? Largely not, because I think that's something which is largely an environmental aspect, and as a profession of researcher, where our job is to give better predictions, does not allow us that much of space and that much of time, and also the political mileage such talks generally get. Not really at the moment, but this is something which I have been doing at my personal level, where so I'm a part of Indian Youth Climate Network. So this is something which I was involved with when I was in India. I'm still on their board. So this is the activist part of me who works towards mobilizing youth towards climate change. And so there I do appear publicly, not as a researcher, but as a part of that organization that I represent, to make people understand what is happening around them and how they, as an individual or as a society or as a family, can contribute to this larger goal. But yeah, I would love to do that more, but the time is something which is always the constraint.
Interesting. I mean, you still find time to what you love, and that is storytelling. Coming back to stories, Gaurav, the USP of Storytellers Cafe, apart from conversations, is also to listen to stories.
Yeah.
Because stories are a wonderful way that bridge the gap between you, me, and make us. So, uh, can we listen to a story? And what is your story about? And
So
how do you? I know that you told me you're not formally trained in storytelling, though you've been in Northern America and Canada, which has a very thriving storytelling guild or an association in
yeah.
Toronto, which is very, very old. And
Yes.
but you have the, like I said, all of us have this natural latent talent in us. It just needs to be tapped. And
Yeah.
then by observing and by telling more and more, you become better at it. So, tell us a little bit how, without anything, you started with personal stories and then you moved on to telling some of the folklores. And if you can share one such story with us, even if it's a personal story.
Sure. So there's a saying in literature, authors generally go with that. When you go to a literary agent to get your book published, they always tell you one thing: never publish the book that you want to write as your first book. Publish the book that will sell, and then publish the book that you actually want to. So the story that I actually wanted to tell was not the first one that I told. It was not even the second, not third. It was I was telling stories for 2 years when I told this one story, which was the reason I started telling stories. There was one story that I had in me, but I didn't know how to tell it. I didn't have the tools because I was never trained in that. It was just after listening to other people tell stories, making my mistakes, learning from those, I was finally able to write this story. It is published in Bodies of Stories book now. So I think I'll start with that. So, yeah,
The stage is yours.
thank you. So it's the middle of this dirt road, close to midnight in the spring of North India. The road is dark, darker than anything you have ever seen. It is silent. And the silence is so loud that the sound of my own footsteps is piercing through my ears. Just 2 minutes ago, I fought with a pack of 3 hyenas, so I'm breathing heavy, scared. I turn off my flashlight to avoid being attacked by other animals. I walk past these many abandoned houses on either sides of this road to this hill on the edge of Thar Desert. There is a temple atop that hill and a fort at the base. The fort and the city around it were built many centuries ago by a king and his middle son. The temple priest, sage Balu, was also the guru of the kingdom, allowed the construction only on one condition: the city shall be in ruins the day your castle casts shadow on my temple. And I mean it. And that is exactly what happened. Today, the fort and the city around it are in ruins under the curse. Sage Balu is said to be buried in his grave inside the temple to this day on the top of the hill, keeping eye on every single movement, still guarding the fortress. People do not talk about this place. Such is the fear of the unknown. And those who dare have some of the wildest narrations to recite. It is cursed. It is haunted. It is the most storied ruin of the world. The Bhangar Fort. Entrance to the fort after sunset or before sunrise is forbidden by law, and it is written at its gate. It is said whoever has dared to enter after sunset or before sunrise has never returned, dead or alive. And I decide to see for myself if the claims are true. As I reach the end of this road, I stand in front of the door of the city made of steel bars, thinking, should I go back or take a brave step to go through the door? I turn my flashlight on. Seeing that, suddenly someone rushes from behind the bars. He's the man guarding the doors of these historic ruins. Expressing his displeasure about my presence at such wee hour, he warns me of the ruins and the surrounding wildlife and asks me to leave. He was angry. I offer him a bribe, a bottle of cheap wine, and to my luck, he accepts and lets me in. And angry, he says, "We cannot allow you to enter the fort. No one has the permission for that. You can see the ruins from outside, but stay with us at all times. And by the way, why did you come alone?" Fair question, I thought. But I stay silent with no answer. Sitting on the porch of their little house at the gate, I think of the time when I was laughing at all the stories of people who went missing from there, calling them fake. But sitting in that very city now, I'm scared. The legend says the residents of ancient Bhangar still live there, and the dead city comes alive at night. The locals claim to hear loud music from the city every other night. As the guard and his colleague taste my wine, I ask myself, does the city really come alive in the night? There's nobody in there. Are all those stories I had read even real? Worried, I stand up, look at the guards, and do what any intelligent person would have done in such a situation. Begin walking deep in the ruins with the two guards. A few minutes later, I see a couple of shadows on the trail to my right. Wait, are there people inside? Actually, I shout out to the guards, hey, look, there are some people inside, and I quickly run towards the shadows. The shadows are still, not moving. As I reach closer, I realize I only hear my footsteps. I do not listen. I do not hear the footsteps of the guards or see their flashlights as I turn back. I reach closer to the shadows and freeze in shell shock. The shadows are not people, but half walls. Half walls size of a human. They are not people but a pile of rocks. I quickly turn off my flashlight. Now I do not want to be seen by the guards. I want to explore the ruins on my own. Slowly I continue moving towards a rotting mansion just before the fort. That mansion had a weird damp smell, actually, a mix of rotting carcass, fresh cut grass, ammonia, like somebody was urinating, and much more complex. As I reach the mansion, I hear voices. Voices. Or they are whispers. One of them is a woman, now breathing heavy, scared, with an austere feeling something may happen because I do not see anybody, but I still hear them. I quickly turn on my flashlight and start running back. I still do not see the guards. I run straight to the gate of the Bhangar fort. The fort is standing tall in all its might on the other side of another set of steel bars. The dense hanging roots, trees spread all across the walkway, the huge gate, the broken walls, and the oddly piled stack of rocks. It is nothing less than a jaw-dropping nightmare. All the stories that I had read before coming here, the conversation that I was having since the morning, they are flashing in my head like a movie looped in fast forward. I see jumping rabbits on the ground, monkeys jumping on trees, snakes crawling, things flying past my eyes and coming back again behind my head. In a panic, I crash on the ground. After a few minutes, or maybe more, I get up and start running back, not knowing I'm running again in the wrong directions. Disoriented, I'm lost. After struggling for what seems like a lifetime, I give up. I crash on some rocks and prepare myself to die like all others in those stories. I can feel the blood rushing in my head as if somebody is pulling guts out of my mouth. Maybe that's how you die. Slowly, a white light descends and shines in my eyes. There you are! That's the guards with their flashlights. They have finally found me. I'm not going to die. Not tonight. Thank you. You are muted.
Sorry. What a wonderful way of telling your story, Gaurav. You had me at the edge of my chair, and I could really feel the tingles, up my spine, the dark night entering, and then you, the way you started that, it's a no one who's entered this has ever returned live or dead. And then there you are, your descriptive language, the pause, the pace, fantastic. What a
Thank,
wonderful,
thank you.
wonderful story. So, this is the story that was burning in you, that you wanted to tell, right?
Yes, so I visited this place in 2013, and since then I wanted to tell the story, but I don't know how to. So this is the
So, this
one.
is your own personal experience. You
Yes.
experienced it. Oh, that's lovely. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I'm so happy that you shared it with us on Storytellers Cafe. For all those who tuned in a little bit late, our guest tonight is Gaurav Madan from Norway. And he just finished telling us a wonderful story about this mysterious fort in Rajasthan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And you can also always go back to the archives and listen to the stories. You've not missed anything. Go to the Facebook page of Bharat FM, and all that you have to type is Storytellers Cafe with Gaurav Madan, and his name will flash up, and you can see the podcast. And similarly on YouTube, all that you have to do is type, and you will get to watch this episode on Storytellers Cafe. So, Gaurav, we will of course be putting your social media handles and your email. Those who want to reach out to you, contact you, can definitely do so. This will open more doorways to more festivals from the East. So, coming back to storytelling festivals, you've of course rocked in Canada, in North America,
Yeah.
as well as the United States. So, and you also won, you were the winner of a story slam. Was this in the United States?
That was again during the pandemic, but it was staged from Pennsylvania. I
Okay.
think that was Philadelphia. But again, their performers were from all over the world. So yeah, that was my first time ever telling a story in a competitive event. So I was very nervous, like any other show anyway. But when the stakes are high, suddenly you are competing for your story. That was a very very weird feeling. So that was the one of the two slams that I just entered. This was purely for fun to see if I where just to check where do I stand in front of other storytellers, and yeah, I was lucky enough to win. So there were two winners. One was audience vote and one was judges' choice. I was lucky to win both.
Wonderful. Congratulations. So, have you performed anywhere in the East, in India, or I think you did mention about Feast. You are aware of the Federation of Asian Storytellers, which is based out of Singapore. Any forays into the Eastern storytelling
So I
festival?
did perform at a few shows in Delhi. That was when I visited India back in 2017, 2018. Very brief 5 month period. There I was exploring what all setups are there in Delhi. So there I did perform at three different shows, but they were large. They were not storytelling shows. They were largely you could either tell a poem or you could tell a prose or anything, whatever you wanted. So they were those kind of sets. But other than that, in person, I haven't been able to perform otherwise in India. But what pandemic did, one good thing, if there is one good thing that pandemic did, was brought the world together through these online events, and that allowed me to tell a lot of stories in Europe, in South America, in UK, in US, in different cities. Toronto largely was my introduction into storytelling theme was online, not physically. So I think I would love to tap more into East, but I haven't been able to yet because travel is something which I could not do earlier, and there were not many events actually that I knew about that existed in eastern part of the world until like very recently. Like there was the festival that Chennai holds. Um, Even that I came across just this year. So that's how disconnected I was with Indian storytelling diaspora because I was looking for storytellers from my country to learn from them what kind of stories they were telling, but I had no reference point. So there was a time when I was feeling that I'm lost because I started on my own and I'm moving in some direction, but I don't know what path I am on and where will I reach after a few years. Am I going to be lost in oblivion because I'm not adhering to what generally people are looking for? So yeah, but now I think that helped me in a way, particularly in Canada, because uh, people in Canada had not experienced stories the way I was telling and the way I brought in the folklore as well. So that helped me create an identity, which I think one thing that worked in my favor, that I was not adhering to the rules.
Yes, it's always good to break the norms and, uh, clear a path of your own and be a trailblazer. I mean, that is something that resonates with me, the kind of personality I am. That's wonderful, Gaurav. Now, this should open doorways for you in the East,
I hope so.
Yes, of course, of course. Of course, we have in India the Chennai Storytelling Festival, and we have Bangalore Storytelling Festival, which is called the Best Festival. And Mumbai, we had the first International Storytelling Festival in 2020 January.
Okay.
Yes, and because I am one of the founders of Mumbai Storytellers Society that was set up in 2019, and we'll be celebrating our I would say second storytelling international storytelling festival early next year. You will
Wow.
definitely read up about it. And we have the Kathakar Storytelling Festival in Delhi, which
Okay.
is a yearly festival. And we also have the Udaipur Tales. So these are purely storytelling festivals,
Hmm.
not literature festivals, purely storytelling. Of course, this also, some of them do have music, poetry, dramatized reading, all that in the festival. But
Hmm.
uh, basically, Chennai, Mumbai, and Bangalore are pure storytelling. So
Hmm.
where we, give more credit to the oral narrative, the oral tradition of storytelling. So, coming back to you, Gaurav, you've performed in South America. That's interesting. So, this was an Indian association, or is it an international organization, a guild?
None of these online or in-person shows that I have told stories at. It's very rare that I even shared a stage with a storyteller from India. So that was something which I'm deeply missing, to share the stage at least with people coming from my background, because it has always been the case when I'm telling a story. Uh, I'm just the only one from the East. Uh, but then that created a challenge, that when I started tapping into other folk tales and stuff, when you are introducing these folk tales to people who probably do not know much about, then the challenge is how can you deconstruct this story and present in a way that is consumable for them, right? Because there are so many complicated arguments and so many underlying things that are there in the story, the characters, the names of the characters, which you cannot and you should not play with. That was a challenge that I felt, and how can I create as many images as I want to in the heads of the listeners. Somebody, it's like explaining color pink to somebody who has never been able to see colors. So then you try to bring more references, combine them, and then present in a way that's consumable. So that was the challenge that I took up, and it was fun.
Wonderful. Do you think we can listen to another story from you?
Sure. So carrying forward the same thing, creating as many pictures as I can. So in 2020 October, when I had moved to Norway already, CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Centre, their radio didn't know that I had moved. So they reached out to me, and in the Halloween in the October, what they wanted, instead of telling ghost stories, they wanted to bring in stories from different cultures, but who have some dark elements involved in it. So for that, they reached out to me if I was willing to share a story for them. And luckily, in when I was in India in 2017, I arrived there in November, immediately after Diwali. There were those religious books still lying around, so I picked up one of the books, which was about stories about Devis, and I landed on the story of Kali. And also Kali has strong significance in my life for the fact that as a kid when I was growing up, Kali temple near my house was some place where we would visit every Saturday without any break, no matter what. So when I got this chance to connect all these dots, then I then I challenged myself: how can I present a story about Kali in a way that people can still feel connected with, and can still appreciate the way the story is told while still staying true to what the original story wants to transfer to people. So before I start, I would like to apologize for all the people who are rustics of Indian classical music, because I'm not a trained musician, but I love to mix music and stories. So you will hear drone, tanpura, whatever you want to call it, in the background as the noise, and I'll start now. सर्व मंगल मांगल्ये शिवे सर्वात्र साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते. Who is the auspiciousness in all the auspicious, complete with all the attributes, who fulfills all the objectives, who is giver of refuge with 3 eyes and a shining face. Salutations to such. You, O Narayani, Durga, Shakti. Once upon a time, there was no time. Now, long before the conception of this universe, there was just eternal darkness in the space, and a flame in the center called Adi Yogi. Now, as you know, Adi means ancient and Yogi means one who pursues yoga. Adi Yogi, although has no form, no beginning, no end. From that eternal flame of Adi Yogi origined Brahma. Adi Yogi asked Brahma to imagine the universe. Now, as Brahma imagines the universe, the sun, the stars, the planets are created, Brahma imagined the three worlds. Bhuloka, the physical earth on which we humans live. Swargaloka, the sky in which the gods live. And Patal Loka, the underground where live the demons, the Asuras. The three worlds had distinct divisions. The demons could not cross over to either Bhuloka or Swargaloka freely. However, with the fire and mantras as their medium, they could invoke gods like Brahma and even Shiva, who is Adi Yogi himself. One of the Asuras from the dungeons of earth succeeded in invoking Brahma. Impressed by his extreme penance, patience, and devotion, Brahma blessed him with a boon that whenever a drop of his blood fell on the ground, his clone would be born at that spot. He was thus named Rakta Bija. Rakta means blood. Bija means seed. Rakta Bija, one whose each drop of blood is a seed. He was now immortal. Any attempts to strike him with weapons only created more of him, equally powerful, equally barbaric, and he soon won control over the entire earth and Patal Loka. Rakta Bija, with other Asuras, now rallied together to overthrow the gods and gain control of even the sky and thus the entire universe. He defeated all the gods, including Adiyogi himself, in no time. He was now the strongest warrior in this whole universe. It is then gods turned to Shakti for help. Armed with weapons of all the gods, Shakti rides in the battlefield, riding on a tiger. In no time, she slays all the demon soldiers as they advance, until all that remained was Rakta Bija, and furiously, Shakti slays him as well. And Rakta Bija's blood spilled everywhere. Full armies arose from the puddles of the blood of Rakta Bija. The more she attacked, the more he multiplied. They rode on elephants and horse-drawn chariots. They laughed and shouted at Shakti's dilemma, and now even Shakti herself was all but defeated. Out of fury, Shakti closed her eyes and roared. From the forehead of Shakti emerges a woman, half naked, with deep dark skin barely hung onto her bones, hair of fire, blood-red eyes sunken deep into her skull. Angry, she holds a skull in one hand, sword in the other. She is Kali. Merely her furious gaze leaves half of the demons lifeless, and loud, petrifying scream shakes all the three worlds. With wild cackling, she reaches out with her claw-like hands and shovels the remaining demons with their elephants and horse-drawn chariots into her gaping mouth, and now only Rakta Bija remains. Kali charges at him and severs his head and quickly catches the dripping blood from her outstretched tongue and drinks it instantly. No more blood appear on the ground, and thus no more Rakta Bija erupt out of it. Kali lifts his entire body in the air and drains all the blood from his body and turns Rakta Bija to ashes. Now drunk with Rakta Bija's blood, Kali dances wildly on the corpses of demons, weaves in and out of their bodies. She breaks their bodies into pieces, fashions skirts with their hands and a garland made with their heads, and wear around her neck. Her dance grows wild with every passing second, and feet begin to pound destruction on the planet. Shiva, also her other half, throws himself down beneath her feet, and Kali comes to her conscience. and evaporates. Kali is the embodiment of a woman's completeness and autonomy, which does not seek a man's gaze to define herself in any way at any time. Such is the nature. She is the nature. Kali is in you and me. She is our soul. Thank you.
Fabulous, fabulous. Gaurav, the drone of your Shruti, your Tanpura, and the telling, because this is the story Raktabijas from Devi Mahatmyam. I had done an entire episode on Devi Mahatmyam for Storytellers Cafe last Navratri. And
Okay.
thank you for sharing this beautiful story about the goddess, about Kali, the Durga, the Shakti that's there in all of us. Wonderful. My favorite genre is our traditional epics, stories from our great, tomes, the Vedas, the classics. So these stories have music in them because they're about gods and goddesses. So, in fact, I'm so compelled to sing along with you, the beautiful song about Durga, the Shakti. And I'm going to sing that one line because I just can't stop myself because you've invoked the Devi here, the primordial energy out here. So, just a line for you. Hmm. जागो तुम्ही जागो जागो दुर्गा जागो दश प्रहरण धारिणी অভয় শক্তি বলো প্রদয়িনী তুমি জাগো জাগো তুমি জাগো Thank you,
Thank you. Thanks
Gaurav,
a lot.
for connecting me to the Shakti that's within all of us, and who has really been present during these difficult times. And these stories have sustained us. So, when I did the Devi Mahatmyam for all the 9 days, I didn't know about Devi Mahatmyam. See, I know the epics Ramayana, Mahabharata, just the story of Devi or Tulsi, but the Devi, where she kills all these demons, the 9 days, the three different, rupas or her avatars. It was a
Yeah.
wonderful journey for me actually to go within and discover this. And that's what stories do, right? You
Yeah.
discover so much not only about you, but also about your cultural heritage. And what a
True. Yeah.
beautiful heritage we have. Something that we can proudly say and fall back on, which actually guides us when we go through these difficult times. Don't you think so? There is an answer present in these age old stories.
Yes.
We just know to look for which one.
Whenever we feel kind of lost, and that was something which was happening when everything was locked down abruptly, and I was not seeing anybody. That's when you want to go back home, and these stories are our home. This is where we always find ourselves again and again over time, and appreciate our roots, and that's where we always find um, our ancestors, their works, and we try to embody them in as many possible ways, and we bring them in the ways that we think we should express, and it can be any form. Some people like to paint, some people like to tell stories, some people sing. So yeah, I mean, there are countless possibilities, and the kind of vast history we have that goes back millions of years. I mean, the possibilities are endless, and once you get in, I mean, there's no way out. There is no way out.
Absolutely. And this is something that you would love to go deeper and deeper into. You don't want to come out of it. I mean, definitely don't want to come out of it. So, Gaurav, tell me, what is the next step forward? What's your future? Is there any storytelling project or festival that you're looking forward to? What's on the anvil?
So you uh, I was in a way introduced to you through the story Danveer Karan. Now, Danveer Karan is not just a 20-minute story, which was 25 minutes, which was told in that show. Danveer Karan is like a 2 hour set on its own. Uh, so the plan is to structure that together and be more comfortable with it because it is very complicated. Since I do not want to perform this only in India, but I want to tour with it in Canada to start with, maybe US, I don't know. Um, so to put this together is the next thing that I want to do. That's the one immediate thing on my cards, to pull this 90 to 100-minute set with the Indian classical music, get better at singing, get better hold of the musical notes, and these deconstruct story in as simplistic way so that it's easy for people in the West to consume, and I'm still staying true to the values of those story. So I think that I find this challenging. Even same thing was happening with me in Kali when I mentioned this this dark body and sunken eyes, blood red hair, eyes. I mean, you can imagine who I'm talking about. But when you try to paint the same picture in front of somebody who has never heard of someone or have never seen Kali, it becomes challenging. Now imagine Mahabharata that has countless characters which hold so much importance. So presenting them, embodying them as a one person, and then presenting their ideas, develop that empathy for them. There's a longing in Karan's life. Empathize with that as well, and then present it. I think it's challenging, and I don't want to rush through it. It deserves a lot of time. 30 minutes, I don't think they are sufficient to present the pain of Karan and also the characters that revolve around him. So this is the one thing that is on. This is what I'm looking forward to. You may see that next year or a year later. I don't know. I want to be as quick as possible, but you never know when will that come out. I won't do that online for sure. I want to do that in a theater with good sound and seeing in the eyes of the audience, which I always love, and and passing that message one person at a time. So this is what the next thing on the cards. There will be festivals, more festivals coming up. I am traveling to Marrakesh next year in Morocco in February. So that's one storytelling festival I'll be performing at. I'll try if I can get to travel to Toronto next year. I don't know. Then St. John's Storytelling Festival is another thing. That's my home, as I call it. That's where I began storytelling in the festivals kind of journey. So there are plenty of things to look forward to, but immediately this year I'm going to just work a bit on my fitness and singing.
Wonderful. All the best to you. And you sing beautifully. Being a classical vocalist, trained in classical music, it's always wonderful to be present, when there is a beautiful music
Yeah.
and you get lost in it. And I just loved that singing the alap that you did. So it was wonderful. And to introduce the shloka and start your story, because that's something I too do, you know, do the whole thing. Any plans of visiting India, Gaurav?
I will be there in December actually. I don't know exact dates, but I will be there for Christmas break. So I want to spend at least 3 4 weeks with family. It has been a long time. So yeah, December is when you will find me in Delhi. Maybe in Mumbai. I don't know.
Yes, yes. I'm just storing it because we would love to have you in Mumbai. And like I said, we have a festival coming up early next year. So
Yeah.
we're just finalizing. But sounds interesting, your trip to Morocco, something more, and other places. We wish you all the best, Gaurav. It's been my pleasure and honor to host you on Storytellers Cafe, and wonderful to know more about you. I just saw your name and then, signed up for your event at the Toronto Storytelling Festival this May. And little did I know, in a couple of months, I would have you in my studios as my guest. And that's the beauty of storytelling. It just kind of opens so many doorways and connects you to people. We wish you all the best, and this episode of ours will be aired on the 17th of July, that is Sunday, at 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time and 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So that would be somewhere during the day for you
Yeah,
in
that will be like 5:30 in the evening.
5:30 in
Yeah,
Norway. Please
yeah.
do share this with your friends, as I would. And for all you listeners, do get in touch with Gaurav, the wonderful storyteller, as you have heard and listened to him, and share this uh, podcast with your friends and family. And do write in and give us your comments and tell us from where you are listening. We would love to hear from you. So, any last words, Gaurav, before we sign off?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you. Thanks a lot for having me on your wonderful show. I was listening to other storytellers in the previous weeks, and I kind of found myself as a misfit in this because, as I said, I do not consider myself belonging to that storytelling community of wonderful storytellers who have done so much. So yeah, but to your audiences, I mean, stay connected there. This is an amazing platform where I was checking older episodes, and the quality of storytellers that we have and that come regularly on this show and present their skills and share their life journeys. I think that's incredible and very inspiring for young storytellers to learn various ways people tell stories, first of all, and how much depth they already have. You started this particular show saying that there's a storyteller in everyone, and I think I live by that statement whenever. Now I'm conducting training sessions for researchers how to tell stories in science. So this is the one line that I always start with, that there is a storyteller already in you.
Yes.
You have done the research, the hard part is done, you are a storyteller, the research is done. Now it's to put things together and then present in a way. So this is something as well I do, how to tell stories in science. So you may find
Gaurav,
some interesting
the
things.
Columbia School of Business says
Yeah,
storytelling is uniting an idea with a strong emotion,
yeah.
makes for a compulsive telling. So it's very simple, an emotion and an idea. Unite it,
Yes,
and you have your story. So you really don't need any skill set. Of course, when you
exactly.
observe more and more storytellers, you develop your own skills. But as long as you have an idea and an emotion, just bring them together and tell your story. Uh,
Absolutely.
and that's it. So it's been a great honor to have you in my studios. So, listeners, if you missed it, like I said, go back to the archives on YouTube as well as on Facebook, Bharat FM page, and you can listen to this podcast with Gaurav Madan. Gaurav, we wish you all the best. And to my listeners, I'll see you soon with yet another storyteller, I think from within India, maybe somewhere from the southern India. So stay tuned, and I'll see you soon, same time, same place. And that's it for now, signing off. Thank you, Gaurav.
Thank you.